World Series time. Yes, World Series time. The number one seeds from both sides. You know what? Before we do any of that, I'm going to do 2 orders of business on the FT side, and then we're going to dive all into the World Series and what happened over the weekend with the CS games. It's Kratz, it's Cam, it's Scotty Braun. First off, thanks to our YouTube channel crowd, the FT fam, the OG fam, for 60,000 subscribers. That means you're like, tell your friends, you're referring, you're subscribing. We still have about almost half of the audience that watches us that also trolls us and doesn't press the subscribe button, but we do have 60K that actually give us that little friendly boop. And we did add some on Friday night when Cam Maybin was the star along with Brent Rooker and Vinny Pasquantino on our watch party. Cam, did you have a good time? Those guys, they can talk ball. They're really smart.
Bro, I got goosebumps throughout that game. And one, because the game was so exciting, but listening to both of those guys talk about baseball, talk about hitting, realizing how cerebral they are, right? These are not just great athletes. They are students of the game. And I mean, Rook was like a professor. And then Vinny, the Squatch, he's in the land of his own, man. You know, he's in the world of his own when it comes to hitting. So, you know, listening to him talk about knowing how quick guys are to the plate and how long his load is, and it was mind blowing, man. But I had a ball. It was a blast, and it made for quite the game too, man. We got a show, and then Mason Miller. What about this guy too, right? Johnny Cash, cool, calm, and collected. So it was a ball, man. It was fun all night.
Yeah, Mason Miller talking about Emmanuel Clase unraveling. I mean, that is really, really good banter right there. So if anyone missed it, you can still listen back to it. It's just like a good talk show. Especially we got into a lot of background stories with the guys early on. So we'll also probably work on some type of little, best of kind of situation from it. I'll see, and post maybe a podcast during like the Christmas break. When we have some of the stories that we can collect from them there. But otherwise, just get it now. Go give it a listen. And then also, of course, World Series coming up. So we're going to have post-game shows. So game 1 of the World Series is on Friday evening. We will have our post-game show on FT right after game 1. We will have Pinstripe territory live after every single game, and Dodgers territory is getting loaded up after game 1. So you have multiple options. We're competing against each other, friendly competition, because we're all friends in the same fam and network. And really, I think Kratz Derek puts it best, host of Pinstripe. He's like, go grab one, then you can grab another after that. It's on demand. It's free 99. Go give it a listen. And also, obviously, depending on where your allegiance lies. But it is kind of cool sometimes. We do see quite a few fans of the opposing team jump into a team show in the FT network just to kind of hear what they're saying. I feel like you would do that.
Oh, 100%. Don't listen to the one side. You're going to hear the same rhetoric all the time from one side. Go listen to the other side. See if your side is actually right. Or what I like better is see what they're afraid of. Because if you know what the other team's afraid of, that's how you know how to really prod them. Really prod the opposing fans.
Yeah, what's really grinding their gears. I like that. That's good. All right, so let's spend a few minutes here on the World Series matchup because then Joe Maddon's going to join us. So let's charge the damn mound.
Charging the mound.
Here we are. It's the top seed from both sides. It is, 2 of the top most popular franchises in our sport, if not the top 2. I think you can make a pretty good case right now. The Yankees brand along with the Dodgers brand, which is very international. You've got the top 2 markets, and you've got some complainers, Cam, although it's not like we have this every year. This isn't like the NBA where we have certain super teams, and I know they've got more parity right now, but in the past 20, 25 years, you often have one team with either LeBron or the Warriors, whatever, and they're just in every year. We never get that. So I'm like, no. From someone who truly is a neutral fan in our sport, when we get Dodgers-Yankees, let's enjoy this.
Absolutely. I was a guy, people ask, who did I want to see? And I said, for New Yorkers, of course, the Subway Series would have been cool. But for baseball, I think you want to see the 2 best teams. When you talk about the offseason, storylines that we saw in LA, Shohei Ohtani, all the moves they make to bring in Glass now, to bring in Teoscar Hernandez, to really bolster this team, to really add depth. But then they get hit with injuries, and then the Yankees come out hot. Aaron Judge also starts out slow. Then he gets going. I think the storyline when you talk about the two most storied franchises, the two franchises that I think coming into the season, both of these franchises thought, hey, our teams are going to be in the World Series. So now here they are meeting. It's been 43 years since this matchup, since the Dodgers-Yankees matchup. So I think this is cool. The history been on the Yankees side, so I'm sure the Yankees fans are going to be feeling really confident about that, even though it has nothing to do with this season. But it's going to be a fun series to watch. I'm super excited, and I can't wait to see how it pans out. I'm curious to see how the Dodgers bullpen holds up. They were outstanding in this past series. And the Yankees, they got to do better with runners in scoring position. So much to get to, so much to talk about. But I love the matchup. The two MVPs. You got Juan Soto as well going into free agency. Giancarlo Stanton, I think, still working on cementing his legacy as a possible Hall of Famer. It's going to be exciting.
There's so many things. Like, it feels like it's checking all the boxes. Derek, the leader of Pinstripe territory, put in our chat that it's the first time 250 home run opponents are going against each other in the World Series. This is East Coast baseball versus West Coast baseball. They're hitting the international contingent for baseball, for growing the game. And to me, this is why we started this show. There is no better World Series here. Yeah, only half my pick is in the World Series, but this is so good for the game. A regional game that's watched by the world. The world doesn't watch the NFL. The world is starting to watch the NBA over the last 15, 20 years. But baseball is an international game, and we hit all those aspects. Japan is not going to be watching the Phillies play against the Yankees as much as they're going to be watching the Dodgers play against the Yankees. The Yankees are the ultimate team. To me, the Dodgers are the second tier in the sense of popularity because of Shohei. That's why you signed a guy for $700 million. And right now, first year in the World Series, after you sign him, they're already getting their money back. This is $1 billion contract. Easy.
I got to mention this because I'm definitely going to bring it up to Joe Maddon, former World Series winning manager. Kratz, how often was the theme of the bye, I call it bye week because it just flows better, brought up over the past year? When you come off the World Series we just had with wildcard teams last year in the Rangers and Diamondbacks with upsets left and right. And then this year, 3 out of the 4 bye teams made it to the next round, and we have the 2 top seeds on each side. So should everyone just zip it now and we're good with the current playoff format because you can just be really good, get a few days off, and still beat the crap out of the next team?
Yeah, if you're really good, like you take some ownership in it and you're like, you know what, we can take care of this. I guess the teams that lose are looking for an excuse, and it was convenient that the numbers were working in their favor. Every team wants days off. So are we gonna automatic? Do we got to cash the under already here on Monday for the Friday game because everybody's got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off? So it seems like a bye week for everybody. So you're sitting there going, oh well, both teams are not going to be fresh or not going to be have their timing. So yeah, save that. But it was brought up once a week when some superstar didn't play. The load management. Well, it doesn't even matter because, they're going to make the playoffs anyway. And, maybe they don't want the bye week. Save it. You always want the bye week. I'll argue that till I'm blue in the face.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more, Kratz. You can't tell me when you look at both of these rosters who have been somewhat banged up, especially the Dodgers, you can't tell me that they didn't need those days off, and then when you look at both of these teams as they sat back and watched who they were going to play, what I saw was 2 teams throwing everything out that they had. Bullpen usage. I mean, stressful innings, stressful games, stressful pitches. While teams were sitting back going, okay, we see what we're up against. Now we can set our matchups against, who they're going to throw out there, who we're going to face. So I'm with Kratzy. I think you always want those days off, especially when you have veteran teams, you have veteran players, you have teams that have been banged up throughout the year. So I think it couldn't have worked out better for these teams. And it showed up in the playoffs. They were fresh. They needed those days. Those arms needed those extra days. And it benefited them tremendously. And now they are where they are. And I think that by those meaningful games during the season showed up big.
Hey, Cam, what do you think what did you think of the way that the Dodgers have navigated through the postseason so far? And I thought it was a good point how there are bullpen game haters. I'm in that boat from an entertainment standpoint. I'd rather have the marquee big starting pitching matchup. But for me in this case, I don't think it was intentional. The Dodgers tried to rack up a dream starting staff. If they even had half the guys that were on their injured list right now that usually start games for them, we wouldn't be talking about this. But they were so heavily depleted. I don't think they, talked last offseason and said, you know what we could really do? More bullpen games to get us to the World Series. I think they were just like, we don't really have that many starters, so we're going to need to do this, and our bullpen's been money.
Bro, I'm so glad you said that. Me and you, this is why I love you. We share brainwaves all the time. Because I thought one thing we need to talk about is how impressive Dave Roberts and his staff was managing the bullpen. And they had to, right? You look at Flaherty, he hit a wall. So, again, this is big. He's going to need those days of rest as well. He hit a wall. The stuff wasn't there. They had to go to the bullpen. And when you look at the bullpen, and Kratz knows, you've seen it more and more starting in spring training. They're asking guys like Kopech to stretch themselves out. They want to see more guys that can go 2-3 innings, and it's benefiting them. Like you said, from an entertainment standpoint, you want to see the Clayton Kershaws, you want to see those Bumgarner moments, you want to see the Sandy Koufax moments, going the distance. But if you tried that and you're the Dodgers, there would be a good chance that the Dodgers would be going home if they would have tried to go through that method. They had to do what they had to do to get there. And I think you have to give Dave Roberts credit for not listening to the outside noise, right? Doing what he needed to do to set his team up for success to get them to the World Series. And now here they are. And you're going to see a lot more of it. I think, when we think about the history of the past, it almost feels like a spring training games when you're watching Dave Roberts manage these games and bullpen games when they're the most meaningful games of the season. But you have to give those guys credit. Kopech, Hudson, Phillips, Brazier, Banda has been outstanding. So I love what Dave Roberts has done. I think it's going unnoticed if you're not the guys like us who watch it on a daily and watch it throughout the season. But I'm glad you brought that up. It's a great point. And he's been outstanding managing that bullpen.
Well, let's get some more on this and the managing decisions, both past and future, from Joe Maddon, World Series winning manager, joining us right now. You've got his podcast, too, The Book of Joe, which I highly recommend. Two of the smartest minds in the biz, Joe Maddon and Tom Verducci, who you've heard on the sidelines for Fox. Joe, great to see you again. Thanks for joining us for 10-ish minutes here to talk ball. How you doing, and are you excited for this little heavyweight matchup we're about to see?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. Goes back to the Brooklyn Dodgers and Yankees back in the day in Manhattan and Brooklyn. It is probably the right way to do this. The two best teams are going to participate. They're kind of like they're both trending in the right direction simultaneously too. So it should be entertaining. I think it's going to be an heroic series where a lot of late inning kind of things happen offensively to one way or another the games are going to flip. But I think it's going to be very entertaining. I think it's one of the best things for baseball right now to put this kind of foot forward.
All right, so then I want to bring you into the conversation we were just having about Dave Roberts and his bullpen usage from the entire postseason. I was explaining how, it's not due to strategy as much as it's due to lack of starting pitching depth. And while you're at it too, thoughts on the Carlos Mendoza's usage of the bullpen, because he had to go so early into that pen yesterday. And I kind of thought of you with the Cubs World Series when I explained to people how the circle of trust starts to narrow. And if you've got to fill that void for 7 more innings, you're going to be in some trouble usually.
Yeah, when you have to keep plugging the holes in the dike, man, it's not easy when you have to do it often. It's okay once in a while, but when it's on a regular basis, it's very difficult. These guys, I've talked about this before. Relief pitchers are held to an impossible standard of perfection. They are. Everybody wants and believes a bullpen arm needs to be perfect every time out. And furthermore, the manager has to make these perfect decisions also. You can make the best decision in the world and it doesn't work, but you're going to be criticized for that. So it's unusual, like for the Dodgers, to have this many solvent arms that are like, I call them even our head guys. There's different kind of relief pitchers, guys you want to put in a game when the score is tied or you're ahead. And there's others that you want to put in the game when you're behind because you're going to see a better result out of that group. So this group of relief pitchers, that's part of it. To have that many, nobody has that many. It's very difficult to have that many arms that you could trust and rely on in that situation, and that's a tribute to the system itself. I mean, I've known Andrew for a long time, and this has been talked about among them and Brandon Gomes, that they've been talking about this for a bit. There's no doubt in my mind. They knew the dearth of starting pitchers. They knew that they were not going to be able to compete starting-wise at this time of the year, so they started building this group up, having guys appear earlier in the series, even though it didn't seem to make sense. They brought some young guys in just to get their feet wet, knowing that this was going to be more critical later. So it's unusual. You don't have that many. The only way this is going to happen in a regular season, if you expand rosters, or if you go down to 3 starters and 10 relievers at least in on your roster decisions during the course of the season. But to have relief pitchers pitch this often, 2 things: they're not going to make it. Number 2, they're not going to be this perfect.
Hey Joe, I want to.
Or you could just change the allowance for time on the IL. And you could just be like, oh, well, we're going to put a pitcher on the IL for 10 days and send them down to AAA. Manipulate it that way. When you watch these games, who do you feel like, I don't want to say who do you feel like did the best, because you can say, Doc did the best, the Dodgers are in, Booney did the best, the Yankees are in. Who made the moves that you were most in sync with when you were watching these games going, yes, that's exactly when I would have done that?
Well, like you talk about what Voter did the other night early in the game, and I know that was really something that you don't normally do. When you're in an elimination situation, you have to be pressed to do different things earlier in the game. So Voter brought in Smith early, and that was to face Judge right after they walked Soto. So that's the kind of thing you have to, in order to do things like that, you have to discuss that before the game begins. That's not extemporaneous. You just don't think about that in the moment of, hey, let's do this, because different people have to be alerted, because they're going to be asked to do things that they're not normally used to doing. So this is something that's a discussion before the game ever begins. So when you get to elimination, all the chips are out there. Everything you could possibly think of to do, you do. We were with the Indians. We were down 3-1 going into game 5 in Chicago, win that, and eventually win 2 more games in Cleveland. There's no game 8. There's no game 6. There's no game 7. There's definitely no game 8. So you just do things that you think you have to do in a moment to work. Almost 100% of the time discussed them in advance, i.e. John Lester coming in that game. That was discussed very heavily the day before, to the point, don't even think about it. We used 3 catchers in that game. It went from Wilson to David to Miggy, and that was all discussed well in advance. So a lot of this stuff is choreographed, and then theory and reality have to come together. It normally doesn't occur where theory and reality match up, but you have to have these things prepped in advance. Everybody has to be alerted, because you really don't want to pull the alarm when nobody's expecting it.
Hey, Joe, I want to ask you about Giancarlo Stanton and what he was able to do in that past series. At any point, if you would have been in that dugout, would you would have made Judge beat you, or Wells or Jazz, with as hot as Stanton was? Or what do you think about the situation? I know he has that swing and miss factor, but
sure. With the last home run he hit, obviously they got ahead with some breaking balls away. But here's for me. I mean, who's ever pitching for you, you're counting on him to throw the pitch that Stanton's not going to be able to reach. So then you have to have really a lot of confidence in the command of that pitcher in that moment. I've been faced with that, where when you don't really have that kind of confidence in the pitcher's command, that he can, intentionally walk somebody by not throwing a ball over the plate, then go ahead and do it. And that would normally be a real veteran pitcher. Again, I could use Johnny Lester. You've talked about Kershaw, Bumgarner, guys like that they know what they're doing, and they're not going to make the mistake that the Cleveland pitcher made. So that, to me, was a perfect example of when to walk Stanton. I mean, the guy is absolutely on fire right now, and that's anti-analytical in a sense, because analytics is not like intentional walks, even though you're seeing them becoming more profound right now. It's happening more often because it's becoming, I guess, the analytics always changes too. It's a fluid situation. It's not static. And so you're seeing more of that. But to me, when he hit that home run to tie the game up, to me, that was a perfect opportunity to move it on to the next round. I think Jazz was sitting behind him, and you could just see Jazz is not on top of his game right now where the other guy is. So that would have been an easy get, I think, to just let that one go. But when you're talking about walking somebody to pitch to a Soto, or walking Soto to pitch to Judge, or walking somebody to pitch now to Stanton, it's difficult. So that's when a lineup is good, when you have that kind of protection.
How contentious do those meetings get? Those meetings you're talking about, building the script for you for the World Series against the Indians. For you, is there another meeting then that goes on hey, game 5 we lost. We have to rewrite the script for 6 and 7 because we're, possibly getting eliminated. And how much back and forth and like negative back and forth? How much are people pissed about? Oh no, Joe's always got the last. He's always got the last say in these meetings.
Mm-hmm. I can't tell you that people are angry. I just think people are concerned. First of all, it's rare. Trust me, it's rare to have a group of coaches, and whether it's analytical guys or front office guys, to really get in heated discussions anymore. That used to be the thing. It was fabulous. I'll tell you, 2002, when I was with the Angels, that was a group that we had some very heated discussions when because Soch permitted it. Soch was into it. You have Mickey Hatcher, you have Ron Renicky, you have myself, you have Buddy Black. You have a group of guys that were very opinionated and felt free to express themselves. So just being honest with you, it was a much more part of the landscape then where people felt normalized or free to have that kind of discussion where if they disagreed, they said it. I mean, there was times it got loud and it was great. Whenever Mickey Hatcher ran out of breath because he was making a point, I absolutely loved it. That doesn't happen anymore. It's more a consensus built on information given and whoever the presenter is. But frankly, so there's not a lot of that. There's going to be maybe somebody will come to you and say that we're going to do this differently right now. Obviously, this isn't working. We have to try something differently. But the autonomous manager making a point that creates an argument, which Soch did and did really well, doesn't exist anymore.
Joe, I want to follow up. You had an opportunity to manage some of the most talented guys in the game, maybe the most talented player to put on spikes and Shohei Ohtani. What does he have to do with all the eyes on him, all the eyes watching? What does he have to do to help the Dodgers get to where they want to get? And he's helped them get there, but to achieve that ultimate goal, what does he need to do right now? Because there are moments where he's still so special, but there are moments where it looks like he just needs to take a deep breath and just slow down and slow the game down a little bit. What do you see?
Right on, Cam. I really think the biggest thing is like all these statistical information between runners on base and nobody on base. If he could just confine his strike zone just a little bit in situations to just go ahead and get on base. I mean, he's always going to be out there to make an impact. And believe me, nobody wants to win more than this dude. And nobody has a higher baseball acumen than Shohei does. He's maybe got the greatest I've ever been around. I've talked about him, and believe it or not, Jimmy Edmonds. Jimmy Edmonds was another guy, to me, that really thought things through really well to a point that most other guys could not do. So of all of his game, and I watched I was taking a steam bath, so I was watching through the steamy window yesterday. The lefty, was it Banda that got him? Not Banda. Yep. No, Banda's on the
Vesia.
same team.
Is it Vesia?
Yeah.
No.
Somebody got him elevated in fastballs that he just kept swinging at. He can't keep doing that. He needs to just accept his walks. That's all. I'd say the one level, and of all things we're talking about with him, whether he's hitting home runs, driving balls in the gap, driving runs in, stealing bases, the biggest, I think, adjustment he can make going into this next level thing is to accept his walks if they want to do it to him.
Yeah, Manaea got him in this. Was it early in the second inning with the 94 up?
That must have been what it was. Yeah. Elevated in, just swinging, and he doesn't have to. He always believes he can do damage. And listen, like I said, this guy's sharp. He's sharp, and they're going to have different discussions going into this series. And if they bring it to his attention, listen, Joe, there's nobody on, just try to get on base. Just get on base for the next guy, kind of a thing. He'll do it.
I got one more for you on Shohei, two-parter. One, how different does he seem from when you managed him in terms of maturity, being in the league for a while, showing more emotion? And two, you try and see if you can get a few innings out of him. Not asking him, but what if he comes to you, Joe? If you're managing that team and he's like, "Hey, this is the moment I've been waiting for. My arm feels fine. I'm rehabbing already. If I want to do a couple innings here to help out a team that's a little bit depleted on that front in games 5, 6, or 7 or something like that, will you allow me to do it?"
Well, I mean, if all the medical information indicated to me, and he's been working out, he's been throwing on a regular basis, and everything says go, sure, I would do something like that. If that's no different than Kyle Schwarber, in a sense, coming back with the Cubs in 2016, blows out his knee in Arizona the first week of the season, 10 days, and then spends the whole summer rehabbing. Then eventually we're playing the Dodgers. And Theo came in and said Schwarber's going to Mesa to start working out, seeing some pitches, et cetera, and because we're going to get him back for the series. Okay, made sense, made all the sense in the world. And if all the medical people are on board and the work's been put in that you feel comfortable with it, I see no reason why not. After having said all that diatribe, it ain't gonna happen. I don't believe it'll happen. I don't believe the Dodgers will move at all in that regard. They have too much invested for the next season and beyond. So would I do it if all the needles are pointed in the right direction? Yes. Is it going to happen? I don't think so.
Yeah, it would be historic. It would be wild to see someone come back from all of that after this entire season here. Well, Joe, we really appreciate the time. Great to have you on. I'll plug the pod on your way out. I know you got to jump, but thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure.
You guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Be well.
Thank you.
Nice talking to you,
too.
Cam. Be well, man. All right.
Thanks. You too, Joe.
All right, man.
There it is. That's Joe Maddon with us, World Series winning manager. Yes, and you can hear him with Tom Verducci. It's a great pod. Go check it out, The Book of Joe with Joe Maddon and Tom Verducci. Let's keep it going right now. So they asked Dave Roberts before Game 6 if there was any possibility that Ohtani would pitch in Game 6 or 7. He said no. Thank you for asking. Kratz is smirking because I bring it up all the time. I'm bringing it up more for entertainment purposes. It's not like I feel as if, this needs to happen for the Dodgers to win or anything, but I'm just always curious about how Cam, a superstar, right, a legend in our sport, can go to a ball club. And if they do say, hey, he could throw an inning or two, it wouldn't make a difference in life. And he's cleared medically, like Joe said. How do you say no to him?
Yeah, and I'm with you. Listen, you do a great job of setting the stage, and you're very humble. But I think it's a very fair question, especially when you hear rumors of, hey, this guy threw a bullpen and he was 99 in his first pitch, or, he was mid to upper 90s. That says that he feels pretty good now as far as how far he can go for you, the length that he can give you. You never know. But if it's one inning and like you said, you're depleted, I mean, why not? If a guy who's making $700 million, who's bought in, you use that guy, right? And I think I think it'll be important to listen to him, hear him out. One thing athletes do is we are really good about listening to our bodies. And right now, with the adrenaline kicking in, if all the medical is good, listen, if you need to use him in Game 6 or 7, I think it's a great storyline. I think it could make for even bigger excitement when you watch the World Series.
I'm not pandering for more followers. I'm not pandering for more like, oh, wow, look at this. Look what he said. I'm just saying, we talk about elimination games all the time. You talk about, oh, you're going to get eliminated. You don't know if you're the Dodgers, if you're ever going to make it back to another World Series. If Shohei Ohtani gives you the victory this year in the World Series, because that's what you're going for, there's not one person on the Dodgers that's like, we'll save him. We'll save him so we can get the best out of him the next 9 years. No, this is elimination. You are in the World Series. Either the Yankees are going to win or you're going to win. So if people who just dismiss it like, well, they would never do that because he could get hurt. Freddie Freeman's on a peg leg right now. And people say ankles are different than elbows. He's throwing 99 miles an hour. I get all the arguments. But I also understand that the Dodgers may never get back. This is however many times in the last 10 years that they've made the World Series. This is the third time that they've made it and they've been in the playoffs. It's hard to make the World Series. If they have a shot to win the World Series and it means Shohei throwing an inning, every one of them signing up for it. Just saying.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm rooting for it just for the entertainment factor. Just like I was rooting for Ohtani to match up against Mike Trout in the World Baseball Classic. And we got it. And it was awesome. Yeah, it's awesome just to see that matchup no matter what happens, right, in our sport.
And I tell you what, if he does come back, that'll let you know. And not say he's not, but if he does, talk about the fan base that he will get on top of what he already has. I know Kratz is not into it, but we're talking about a guy really showing what he's made of. Dude, come on. You cannot not be a fan if he goes out there and throws for the Dodgers this World Series.
Fact.
You know who's picking up fans? Tommy Tanks. So we'll get to some more Yanks talk in the ALCS, but at least for now, to make sure that we include the NLCS MVP in the first half hour of our discussion, I think it's a must. He's the 5'0" cleanup hitter for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I mean, Cam, he won them the game. And I mean, I don't want to say he won them the series. Obviously, it's a team effort, but I mean, he was a one-man show early on in this game. And for me, I start thinking about the great trade deadline acquisitions. I know you were tweeting about this a bunch last night, being like, yo, this is why you do moves at the trade deadline. And I was thinking of the guys that weren't the biggest names in the world, but that contributed a ton. The Cody Rosses of the world, Marco Scudero, right? I mean, there's big guns, there's hired guns, there's your CC Sabathia when he took over in Milwaukee. But what about those, mid-level guys that you don't think are going to be the difference in winning a World Series? And Tommy Edman goes right up high on that list because he wasn't even playing. He hadn't even played yet. I mean, he's a good player. He's not a superstar player up until this point, and he was hurt the entire year until a couple weeks into his new Dodgers tenure.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the moves that the Texas Rangers made last year. I'm losing his name right now. The young kid that they brought up last year that just raked, and nobody knew who he
Evan
was.
Carter.
When you talk about, yeah, there you go. Carter, who missed what they say, Mr. Full Count. When you have Simeon and you have Seager, and you look at it right now, Tommy Edmonds also too. What he's done is provide depth at any position. We've seen him in center. We've seen him at second. We've seen him at short. He's providing so much other than offense, and that's what you need sometimes when your superstars aren't going. You need the supporting cast to step up until they have those big moments, right? And then all of a sudden, we're not talking about the struggle. So Tommy Edman has done exactly what the Dodgers brought him in to do, and that was to provide a spark. Kike is a postseason legend for the Dodgers. He'll better tell his kids, hey, I was a menace in the postseason. But what he's able to do, I think you need from your supporting cast, and he has not blinked an eye. And sometimes Kratz knows when you're on a team full of superstars, you kind of just lay in the weeds and you're like, hey, when they get to me, they're exhausted because they had to go through this guy and that guy and this guy, and you take advantage of the opportunity. And that's what Tommy Edman has done. He has stepped up when the Dodgers have needed him most. And I think he's going to continue to be a spark plug for them. They're going to need him, and they're going to need guys like Teoscar to kind of get hot and find himself again.
Yeah. Totally. I think that's going to be my, not to bury the lead on when we talk about who's going to be the guy. I think Teoscar. I think it's Tommy Edman. The guys that everyone looked at, well, I know they spent $23 million on Teoscar, but this team was built because they had needs in areas. They went out and got Tommy Edman, somebody that clearly was available for any team to trade for. And he came up in a big spot. He came up in this NLCS and pushed them to the World Series. To me, I think it's going to be a Teoscar. To me, I think it's going to be, somebody from the bullpen giving you that length. Ultimately, the team runs through Shohei, Mookie, and if Freddie can win, Freddie can get in there and beat this ankle thing for these last 7 games. We don't know. But the team will win because of the superstars, but the superstars can't do what superstars do without a Tommy Edman being there because they don't want the other guys to let them beat them. They're going to let Tommy Edman beat them. They're going to let Kike beat him wherever he's hitting. In the 5 hole, in the 9 hole, doesn't matter.
All right, so let's bring the Yankees into the equation here to go over what happened with them in the CS, but also spin it into this matchup against the Dodgers. And I also want to get maybe my favorite storyline of the entire World Series. Not even maybe, it is my favorite storyline by far in the World Series into this one between the Dodgers and Yanks, but let's hit better than box scores. I'm going to give you one guess. I mean, Cam, we love you, but you're not on with us every day yet. But Kratz is on with me every day, okay? So I'll give him one guess. Otherwise, I'm going to save it for a few minutes. But what do you think my favorite storyline is? If you get it right, we'll talk about it right from the jump here. Otherwise, I'll get into something else first.
Your favorite storyline of the World Series or this postseason?
Well, I don't think – yeah, you can give me a guess. I think it's going to be hard for you to get it right. But Kratz has heard me talk about it, so I feel like he has a shot.
Think of a pitcher. That was almost a Yankee.
Flaherty?
Jack Flaherty. All right, let's start with it. So, Cam, Jack Flaherty was a Yankee. Kratz knows. Jack, I love this stuff. This is the good stuff. Jack Flaherty was a Yankee. Period. Done. Bring it to the medical team. They're like, nope, we don't feel good about the back. He's had a little back issue. We can't allow you to make this deal. So he goes to the Dodgers, and he's been one of the saviors, right? I mean, it's not like he's a one-man wrecking machine. I know he was coming off a bad outing, a clunker against the Mets, but he's had some good ones too. This is a team that didn't have enough starting pitching by the time we got to the postseason. And you're like, where would they be without Jack Flaherty? So now we fast forward to the World Series, and Jack Flaherty has a chance to beat the New York Yankees and lead us all the way back to the trade deadline, where if they had picked him up, we're left to wonder, if the Yanks fall in this World Series to the Dodgers, did their medical team cost them a World Series? And it goes back even further, Cam, because I think this all has to do with PTSD from the Frankie Montas edition when they traded for him and he ends up having issues and it was a big bust of a trade. But for me, I'm like, obviously everybody is different. And also Flaherty was a rental. Frankie Montas was a year and a half.
Yeah.
So it's a little more to it. You're much more invested in a pitcher like that. So Flaherty's been pitching with a chip on his shoulder ever since. And again, I know the Mets got to him pretty good, but this is my favorite storyline by far in the World Series.
It's the way you paint it is beautiful, but I do not think if the Dodgers happen to win this World Series and Flaherty has a good outing, I'm sure they're going to be Yankees fans. They're going to be siding with you, going, "We missed our shot to get that guy." But I think I stand on the side of the Dodgers needed him more, right? And I understand the PTSD with what happened to Frankie Montas too. And you have to also remember, Jack Flaherty also has a history of injury, right? We're not talking about a guy that was just extremely healthy in St. Louis. There was a stint in St. Louis where he looked like he lost his stuff, right? He lost the Jack Flaherty of old, and Chris Fetter. He went to Detroit. I think Chris Fetter had a lot with him finding himself again, understanding how to pitch with his new arsenal, with his new stuff, without that same life. But I think when the Yankees look at it, I think at some point the Yankees thought, as Cashman has thought all year long, as we've seen, is we have the pieces in the building to get the job done. And even right now, I think, yes, he's better. He's a better pitcher than Marcus Stroman right now, but you still have a Marcus Stroman laying in the weeds. And when you talk about not giving guys the same look, there is a world and a place where I like the Yankees' depth in their rotation. I like where they are as far as health and availability. When you have a guy like Marcus Stroman, when you have a guy like Nestor Cortez who can still throw guys off, I think the Yankees feel a little bit better about the situation at hand. And I think the Dodgers feel pretty good about going, I'm glad the Yankees had PTSD because we really needed Jack Flaherty.
And maybe Jack Flaherty, if he was down, his velocity was down his last start. The second to last start, his velocity was, 93, 94. But that'll be more motivation for Jack Flaherty to say, hey, you know what? I did have it. You guys needed me. Yankees might have a little bit of motivation because everybody thought Yamamoto was going to be a Yankee or a Met. So there's that too. Maybe the Yankees hitters, if I'm the front office, I kind of just drop a little bit like, hey, we offered Yamamoto just a little bit more than what the Dodgers offered. So he chose this team over you guys. Just saying, if you need a little extra prodding from a note in your locker, that could be something that could be going on in there too.
And let me ask you this, Kratzy. Let me ask Kratzy this real quick, Scotty.
Yeah.
This is me personally watching, and I'm going off of what I'm seeing as the playoffs are transpiring. And you talk about the last two. I go to the last two outings to Jack Flaherty. The way the Yankees are putting at-bats together, this is the most complete Yankee lineup I've seen as far as passing the baton, right? We know they have the homer in their lineup, but they're putting together very quality at-bats. I think leading the teams in the postseason in walks. If they can continue to have those at-bats, I like the matchup against Jack Flaherty for the Yankees. What do you think?
I think I like that matchup. When we break down the matchups, this series is all going to be because the Dodgers are walking the house too. It's all going to be which team has the best stuff to compete in the zone. And if Jack Flaherty has his 93, 94 fastball that he can compete in the zone, it makes that slider so much better. His last outing,
92.
It was crickets. He had 90, 92.
You know what I mean?
Nobody's.
In Yankee Stadium or Dodger Stadium.
It almost looked like his arm angle was a little bit lower in that game, and that just made his slider flat. made his fastball not life, and dudes were just waiting.
What does that
It was a
tell
race
you?
for the bat rack.
What is that a telltale sign of, Kratzy? Fatigue.
Sore back.
Sore back, fatigue. Hey, you never know. So again, right now, I like the matchup. It's gonna be hard. It's hard for me to see him unless you get that shot. I don't know. You get a little boat boost to B12 or something. But 90 to 92, I don't like that against the Yankees because, like he said, that stuff isn't as sharp. It wasn't as sharp. But these days of rest will help for sure.
Yep.
Also, I'm just going to throw this out there because I know Ken Rosenthal, I think, started with the report on Flaherty and the Yankees and how they didn't match up on that factor. And I don't think we know every single iota of what goes on behind the scenes, but I do think the Yanks probably downgraded his status after looking at the medicals. I believe Ken's report. I know we're getting some pushback here because Cash came out and said, you got a lot of different reports out there. This was back in, following the trade deadline. So late July, early August. He said, at the end of the day, I would have brought in Flaherty if I could have matched up, and I had difficulty matching up. That was the reason I don't have him. So kind of denying the whole medical aspect of it. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. I think
it's part of all of it.
It's part of it, but I'm saying like you lower your ask. I mean, there were reports, right, including Ken, that they had him, right? Like they could have had him over anyone else. And however it didn't end up going down, whether you just give a hard no or you downgrade what your ask is, right? Just like if, you'd have draft picks with medical issues, you'd agree to $5 million, then you do the look over the medicals and you offer him $500K and the dude's like, go kick rocks. So the point is that I'm trying to make, the Yankees could have had him. It might not matter at all. And I'm again, like Cam said, the Yankees have a good starting staff. I'm just saying the team that ends up getting him, right? Like even if you got him and he wasn't even in your rotation, you prevented him from going to the team that you're facing in the World Series. No way to know that. Okay. I get that. But I just think the storyline is freaking fascinating. If Flaherty has a few more ticks on his fastball, because the general thing with Flaherty is if he's, like Kratz is saying, if he's 93, 94-ish, he's a completely different pitcher from when he's 90, 91, right? Which makes sense on most cases. But for him, it's like a very concrete line of where is his fastball velocity sitting? And if it's good enough, it usually leads to good results. It's just one of those guys. So if he does shove and help them win a game or two in this World Series, it's just going to be fascinating. It is. And you'll get way more reporting on it too. There'll be absolute behind the scenes chaos and reporters doing their best work to find out again and like look back, Kratz, and be like, what really happened back at the trade deadline that ended up costing this team the World Series? I think it's fascinating. Yeah. All right. So let's get to Big G, the factor. Before this series started, the ALCS, Erik Kratz said Giancarlo Stanton is the X factor in the series against the Cleveland Guardians. He became the factor. We had to do some definition, dictionary digging right here, Cam, a couple weeks ago. And I actually do give it to Kratz the way that it was constructed. You can be a pretty big deal player and still be an X factor in the series. He was the guy in the series. So you guys asked Joe Maddon about this, but I'll go to you, Cam, first. Was he handled correctly? Like in the last game here, the deciding game, he struck out twice against Bibee. Bibee's still in the game. He gets him 0-2 to chase twice, and then Stanton gets him to hang one in the zone. So did they play that out correctly? Because they were one pitch away from handling him very nicely in his first few ABs.
Well, I think Joe Maddon described it in the most perfect way you can describe it. You had the guy out there that you believe could get the swing and miss from Stanton. He showed that he could, but the problem is right now with Big G is if you miss in the middle, he is not missing that pitch, right? We always talk about it as hitters. If I get something to hit, we don't know what's going to happen as far as a result, but it's got to be hit hard somewhere. It's got to be put in play. And that's the difference is he had to look, right? He's seen him twice. And now all of a sudden that one rolls up there because even the first at bat, you got him the first at bat, he dropped one in for a strike. That same one right there, the first at bat of the game, he throws G, I think first pitch strike, 0-0, and he takes it. So he'd already saw that same one. And when he got it later on, he did not miss it. So I think that's the thing. Clearly, Bobby wasn't trying to miss that spot, wasn't trying to throw it there. But when you have a guy as locked in as Big G right now, listen, I think you have to be on like, I am bouncing this no matter what. I cannot let him get a good swing off, his A swing. So for me, think you can look at it a few different ways. Me, I would have been better off walking him, bouncing it, seeing if I can get that Stanton chase. But I think Joe Maddon said it the best way possible. They thought they had the right guy on the bump. And sometimes these guys make mistakes, and these guys get paid a lot of money to hit mistakes.
Obviously, you know your pitcher. Obviously, you know the hitter. You saw how far out Bo Naylor was sitting. That's where he wanted the pitch. The reason they struck him out before was because they were expanding the strike zone. They were going way up and in, way down and away. One thing I know about G, and it's ironic that he hit it in Cleveland, because it was the first time I ever saw him do it. We were in the COVID season in 2020, and in the cage down in Cleveland, in the storage shed that is their cage. And it's a small cage, mostly just flips, maybe a little BP. G is down there hitting in the cage. And what he'd do is he'd say, we had the machine up, and he goes, hey, who's pitching right now? Oh, Karinchak, he's going to throw me that late life 99 heater. Oh, Bieber, oh, he's going to throw me, that curveball. He was tipping the pitches on his curveball, So he'll put that in the machine, and he'll just hit it over and over and over and over and over again. If he's facing Clase, they're putting a cutter on that machine, and he's moving about 30 feet away from that machine, and he's making it the most difficult view of that exact pitch until he can actually hit it, and then he goes back into the dugout. So based on the fact that it was his third at-bat, he had probably taken 100 of those curveballs right down the middle, so he was ready for that pitch as soon as he let it go, and it was right down the middle. G wasn't going to miss it because he was that guy this series. He was him.
Yeah, he was. That is a really cool story too. All right,
and
so
all
I
I know,
ask,
go ahead. I'm gonna wait till we get Keith McPherson on. I'll wait till we get Keith McPherson on.
Okay, perfect. So I'll let you run it because I want to keep this going on Giancarlo. We'll ask Keith about it. We'll also get to some Mets talk with Keith too. So a quick step aside for a second here. Give us 1 minute. All right, FT fam, life's expensive, okay? We know that. So we're looking for the best wireless plan, but also the most affordable wireless plan for you, and we've got it. MintMobile.com/territory, 3-month plan starting for only $15 a month. And Kratz, how easy is it to switch?
Super easy. Just take some time. All you got to do is just call your people and be like, yo, this company, sorry, you can't touch $15 a month. I'm out.
More of a sure thing than Giancarlo Stanton getting a hanging slider in a CS. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. The contacts move over, the phone number moves over. It's fastest wireless 5G, the whole deal. Okay, so go check it out right now. Let's show them the board, mintmobile.com/territory, and let me run through what you get if you're new to the party. 3-month premium wireless, $15 a month. That's mintmobile.com/territory. You get high-speed data, unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan. Bring over that phone number. And again, that's mintmobile.com/territory. $45 upfront payment required. New customers on their first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. And we're back with WFAN's Keith McPherson joining us right now. All right, let's get into it. Keith, great to have you on, man. I mean, this almost was the pinnacle, right? Because I think the pinnacle for what you do being, yes, and obviously you're a Yanks guy, but you talk Mets with the best of them because you run radio in New York City. So as cool as this is, would it have been a drop cooler for what you do and the scene that you represent if it was Mets Yanks, or you're good?
Nah, not at all. I wasn't interested in another Subway series. I think I was in like 5th or 6th grade last one. I know Mets fans were talking a lot about, be careful what you wish for. You don't want to see the Mets. And I was on air saying the regular season is not the postseason. J.D. Davis and Jahmai Jones won't be in the lineup. Like what happened in June and July has nothing to do with what's going on in October. Now we won't even get to see that. The dream has always been Dodgers-Yankees. Jeter said it on the broadcast last night. He said, hey, when I was playing, I was always dreaming for it to be Yankees-Dodgers in the World Series. And I mean, with this offseason, going into this season, the script is writing itself, and we get to actually see it. The dream has happened.
Keith, what's not in the script is how important the Yankees fans are to the Yankees' success, right? Putting on those pinstripes. One thing I know is I tell everybody there's an expectation when you wake up in the morning before you even get to the park as a player. You're going, hey, I got to be ready to go today because these fans are not going to let me take any plays off, take any pitches off. With that said, I know you've seen a lot of superstars come through, put the pinstripes on. It's not for everybody. There hasn't been, in my eyes, a guy that's handled it better than Giancarlo Stanton. When you talk about guys coming in, dealing with scrutiny, having some success, having some failures, can you do me a favor? Because I know you out there with the bleacher creatures. I know you out there amongst the people. Keith is a man amongst the people. Can you do me a favor and make sure they get super loud and show that man the respect that he deserves? Because without Giancarlo Stanton, these guys would not be going to the World Series, and he has handled all of the scrutiny, all the adversity is good as any superstar. Can you make sure those people get up for that man every at bat, bro?
Oh, we already were in the CS, in the ALCS intros, every at bat.
I need it.
Like low key, we're chanting MVP for him, but that's supposed to be for Judge. Yo,
I'm just making sure.
I'll say this about Stanton. Like when it's all said and done, whatever happens, like he's going to be remembered for these moments. He's a postseason monster. He's also going to be remembered for how he was a Yankee, right? He chose to come here. He didn't take a trade anywhere. He wanted to be in the spotlight, wanted to be in the pressure-filled moments. He came here and he said, this is what comes with it, right? And even when he struggles, even when he fails, he stands in front of his locker and he does it the Yankee way, right? He stands in front of his locker, says, I got to be better. There's also times when he was hurt. He says, we're not going to make this about me. I'll be back. And when he comes back and he gives you these clutch performances, a guy that you can count on in October, he makes everybody lose their minds with these home runs. Man, forget about a hamstring, forget about a quad, a calf injury during the regular season. This is what matters most to Yankees fans. And this guy has a ton of these moments. We're hoping there's some more against the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium, where he grew up going to games, where 2 years ago I went to the All-Star game. Yeah, you've seen him hit the ball almost out of Dodger Stadium, right? 2 years ago, he hit that home run to win MVP. It's coming full circle, and I cannot wait to see Giancarlo Stanton in year 7 as a Yankee get that moment in the World Series. He wants that trophy.
Is there anybody that's had a bigger redemption story in Yankees history? Stop now, even if they don't win the World Series. Stop now from what he's just absolutely gotten ripped. Bob Costas, I know he's not a Yankees fan, was ripping Giancarlo Stanton for his health. Yankees fans wanted this man gone. Somebody take his contract, to where he's at now. Because all the other dudes that have gotten ripped, Joey Gallo, he's gone. Jacoby Ellsbury never got to play. He's gone. Everybody in my recent history that has gotten ripped by Yankees fans has never gotten an opportunity to do what Stanton's done, and nobody's ever done what Stanton's done. Or am I missing somebody?
No, this is different. I mean, Kratzy, they were talking about benching him. Fans were talking about benching him the first couple of games and putting Dominguez in because he didn't score, because he can't run. Oh, Stanton is killing us. Going into the season, there were hosts on my radio station saying they got to just cut bait. They got to just cut ties with Stanton. The contract's killing him. I'm like, are you crazy? Are you nuts? This guy can do, listen, when you talk about his story and you talk about redemption, and he's not peacocking around like, what now? What now? He's saying the job's not finished. There's more to do. But yeah, there's been so many critics, so many people that wanted to throw this guy in the garbage, and he just kept showing up, kept going to work. His body fails him. Okay. His body failed him. That's nothing he can control. Those things happen, right? I mean, even coming into the season, Brian Cashman at the GM meetings was talking about, well, injuries are a part of his game. Cashman didn't mean to take a shot at him. It's just how it came out, talking about things. And then he got hurt again. I was at that Braves game where he strained his hamstring, and I'm like, here we go again. It happened. But you know what? He came back. He's healthy now, and they absolutely need him. And every time they need him, he shows up. Stanton is, I can't say enough about him. He's a ridiculous human being and a postseason monster.
Hey, I want to follow up. One thing I love about you is you're a Yankees fan, but you're super realistic about what needs to happen for them to win the World Series. We know Aaron Judge has to be better. He knows he has to be better. The supporting cast has been really, really good. Who, in your eyes, needs to step up outside of Aaron Judge? Who was the X factor for you to get the Yankees over the hump? Is it the bullpen? Is it a specific guy in the offense? Who do you see hey, we need this guy to step up and do something if we want to win outside of Aaron Judge?
Jazz, bro. I got to start off with Jazz just because he's the newest Yankee, and I love his personality. I love his swag, his drip, his aura, all that. But, man, as Yankee fans, we've been putting in pain for the last 15 years not getting it done. And when a new player comes in and says, I can't wait till we win 28, we're going to win the World Series. It's all about winning the World Series. Well, we're there now, bro. And, you've been a passenger through these, 2 rounds. You haven't really come up big. You laid a bunt down. I was feeling that. You did have a knock in the last game, but, when Jazz first got here in the trade, that was something that Yankee fans felt like shifted the team, shifted the vibe, right? You get Jazz and he's hitting home runs right away. He's hitting a homer with Judge's bat. Like, he was clutch. He decided, I can play third base and not, I can move. Like, when he first got here, they put him in center field. But when they put him at third base, he took on the challenge and he's played well. But Jazz has to hit. They are moving him up to 4th in the lineup. Jazz, you got to walk the walk after talking the talk. Also, Austin Wells. Austin Wells is another one. I'm glad to see he came through. He got a fastball. He drove it. He hit it out. But Austin Wells, him being the catcher over Trevino, him being the guy, I know it's his first postseason, so you don't want to be so hard on a rookie, but you're not a rookie anymore. Jazz absolutely has to come through, and so does Austin Wells.
All right, so my next question flows perfectly into that. I don't have an Austin Wells question because I am fully in the corner of Austin Wells' party, but catchers, they're just, they never do wrong. Jazz said something. We're gonna play the video. Jazz said something post game, and I want to hear what you have to say about it.
You walked into this clubhouse with that trophy and said, "I can't believe this." How much fun are you having right now?
I'm having the best of fun in here, man. These guys are amazing. They're electric. They're family. I can't help it, man. I can't stop smiling.
What was going through your mind when Juan Soto stepped up to the plate there with the game on the line in the 10th?
He's going to do it. That's the only thing going through my mind. He's going to do it.
What left you so confident?
Because it's Juan Soto. Pay my guy. Pay Juan Soto.
I'd ask you how much, but we'll leave that for another day.
$700 million.
Get on back in here.
Okay.
Hey,
so
that's what I was doing. I was doing what Keith was doing. Go ahead, Kratz.
So the question's really not. I mean, it's not even really a question. My guy put it out there. Are you okay with that? Because I know you probably had Stanton on the bench because of his salary. So now, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Not once. You didn't say that once.
Nah, everything I say is recorded. We don't have enough hitters to put that guy on the bench. Even when they were benching him to DH Judge to give him a rest, I'm like, nah, put Judge in center, have Stanton in the lineup.
All right. So anyway, this is on video. Like, we got this. So if you say it incorrectly about Soto, we're gonna play it back for the next 15 years. If you say, nah, they shouldn't pay Soto.
$700 million? What are we doing now? Like, okay. Oh, follow me here, right? I got every paper that Juan Soto is in, right? When they signed Juan Soto, I got the December 7th, the last studio you guys saw me in. I had the pictures of, he's the Juan Soto. I understood Juan Soto was the difference. There's a picture of me doing the roll call in game 1 of the DS, and I'm wearing a generational Juan Soto shirt. I knew he was the difference. This is his first Yankees postseason. Pay the man. He's worth everything. But we just went from 600 to $700 million. He just earned himself an extra $100 million. Listen, I know Hal Steinbrenner has the money. I was so happy to see Hal Steinbrenner lift that trophy. We won the AL pennant. But we got to slow down, especially you, Jazz, talking about pay him $700 million. The job is not finished, but I'm so thankful that Juan Soto got that at bat against Gaddis. I was on the radio after we lost game 3 where he was rang up on a borderline call. He also had the pitch clock violation. And I said, watching him all year, watch that man. He's going to show up to the ballpark early, and he's going to be dialed in. He's not wasting a pitch. He's not wasting an at-bat. And so he came back. He homered in game 4. And then that last at-bat, it was like, listen, you're not beating me. Like, I can win the game. Like, you're not. Like, I'll spoil a pitch. You're not better than me. I'm Juan Soto, and I have the ability to send the Yankees to the World Series for the first time in 15 years. He does it. So, yeah, he's going to get whatever he wants, but like $700 million is too much. I mean, even $600 million, I'm like, all right, he's a right fielder. Judge's contract. A couple years later, let's see. And also, we got to be able to pay other guys. If you get to the World Series, you're going to want to get back the next year, right? Nobody repeats anymore. Let's just slow down with the $700 million, especially you, Jazz.
Wait, so are you paying Juan? Like, I mean, I don't understand. Like, why are you trying to save Hal's money? Do you want Juan Soto?
Spend some money in the stadium. I buy some tickets. I just think we're talking $700 million. Like, that's a ridiculous. Like, all right, Shohei is a $700 million man. We know about the deferred money and all that.
Right, but he's 450. He's 450-ish. Yeah. Just for everyone to know.
Soto's not taking any deferred money. Scott Boras not taking any deferred money. So let's pump our brakes with that.
And listen, from a Yankees fan standpoint, I already know what Keith is thinking. See, Keith's a smart man. If they win the World Series, I mean, Juan should be, hey, I mean,
there's a conversation.
Listen,
there's a conversation.
I already know. We right here. I already know my man. Right. Hey, what's in front of us is the World Series now. If you win it, then he goes, hey, I want $700 million. Then you can go. We can use that to go get some pieces. I'm just saying, Kratz. I know how the Yankee fan is thinking right now.
Check me out.
That's a lot of bread, bro. That's a lot of
bread. The Mets fans are hurting right now. The Mets fans went on a magic carpet ride. They thought that this might have been the year. They're hurting right now. When the offseason comes, win or lose the World Series for the Yankees, they're going to be bidding on Juan Soto. If the Yankees win the World Series, they can say, hey, we got our money's worth in that 1 year. We don't have to put $700 million up. Go ahead. If you want to pay him, Steve Cohen, bring him to Queens. We got our championship. We got our chip. Jason Dominguez is sitting on the bench right now. He'll be ready to go next year.
All right, so then let's go right to the Mets and find out what happened to them, because you watch plenty of Mets. And we can use this Soto transition, though. Let's say the Yanks don't win the World Series, okay? And they come damn close, and Juan Soto's a beast in the series too. What if the Mets bid $650 or something like that? Like, how do you see this playing out for a team that fell short, that actually, I think, put up a really great showing on offense? They're going to need some pitching depth, especially the bullpen. That was not in my mind, World Series winning bullpen, because I don't think they expected to be in this spot.
No, they did not expect to be in this spot with their rotation, with their bullpen. They expected to get by, maybe make the postseason as a 6 seed, but like to get that close where they got to 6 games with the Dodgers, it was an incredible run. What I'll say about Juan Soto is this. I mean, Juan Soto would have probably helped you not be shut out when you had those shutouts and the Dodgers are scoring 9 runs, 8 runs. Juan Soto can make that much of a difference. And it's going to come down to, what does Juan Soto want his legacy to be? I think he likes playing with Aaron Judge. I think he likes playing with Giancarlo Stanton. Stanton even said we need him to be here and he needs to be back. Like, is Juan Soto so much of a money man that he'll throw away this year with the Yankees? Let's say he does win a World Series. He's not going to want to come back and run it back and do it again. Let's say the Yankees lose the World Series. He's not going to want to come back and finish the business that he started, have some unfinished business. So if he's just a money man, if Scott Boras, baseball's Bond villain, says, okay, I'm going to bounce back from last offseason, we're going to get the highest offer for Juan Soto, and it's not going to have anything to do with like legacy and the team that he played for this year, then sure, I think the Mets will win that bid. But it's still yet to be seen what happens with this World Series as we get to November, and then talk about the winter meetings in December.
All right, so then let's do this, because we'll continue the postmortem after we talk to you on the Mets. But let me just get your big picture thoughts on what they put together this season. I think there was one point where we brought you on. I think it was the first time we brought you on, maybe several months back, and you were like, damn, the Mets have a team here, because they ran it through the end of the regular season. I mean, if you started the season on June 1st, which you can't do, but they were the best team record-wise through the end, and then they showed that they were one of the better teams by making it to the Final Four here and falling a couple wins short. So when you wrap up and think about what they just did, what are you going to remember?
They made it happen. I dubbed them the Make It Happen Mets on New York radio. In 2022, there were so many games where they imposed their will, where they just had the never say die mentality, where they made it happen. But then they fizzled out, and obviously the Braves had a ridiculous pace, and they lost the division, and we know what happened in the wild card round against the Padres. In 2023, I hit them with the quote where I said, winners make it happen, losers let it happen. The let it happen Mets. They're letting everything happen to them. They're letting everything go wrong, and they had a terrible year. This year, they bounced back. they had more of that in their DNA, which shows you now the culture is built there. Francisco Lindor is the National League MVP if I had to choose a guy. And then you have pieces around him like Pete Alonso, who's another guy in New York that people said to bench, drop in the lineup, counted him out, talked about not paying him, and he went hero in this October. So what I'll say about the Mets is like they did more with less, but now they have the combination of the richest owner in the sport, one of the smartest guys in the sport, and a MVP, a guy that should be captain of this team in Lindor leading the way with some young guys like Mark Vientos, Francisco Alvarez. I just think they have a bright future now, and it's come together. I know Mets are upset today because it didn't end up in a World Series, but they've shaken off the LOL Mets. They've shaken off the Mets that we laugh at and point a finger at and say, like, these guys are bums, they'll never get it done. Like, they have a combination of things that they can look forward to in the future to be perennial postseason contenders. Maybe next year they'll have an ace, right? They went after Yamamoto last year, didn't get him. Maybe they'll be looking for an ace to add to this rotation in the offseason. Maybe they'll add a Juan Soto. Who knows? But I think the culture has shifted and changed with this owner in year 4, and now their president of baseball operations, Stearns, in year 1, and then Lindor really maturing and becoming this like iconic New York athlete, a king in this city. Like, they have the opportunity now to be contenders if they play like that. Just the Grimace stuff and Haktua Girl and, I don't know, Glizzy Izzy and the Rally Pimp and the Playoff Pumpkin, that stuff doesn't matter. They actually have guys that have bought in. And how can I about Carlos Mendoza? I called him Steady Mendy. Even when they were losing games, when Jorge Lopez was throwing his glove into the stands, he said, we have a standard here. And he stayed steady. He backed Edwin Diaz. He backed Pete Alonso. He backed Francisco Alvarez, who had a game last night. And I think that's going to just carry this team a long way. They have adults in the room. They have the right leadership from their owner, president of baseball operations, manager, and leader of their team at shortstop, leading off Francisco Lindor. Like, as a Yankee fan, I don't love it, but like, there are 2 teams in the city now that we can expect in the next few years to be in the running to win the World Series, go to the World Series, be in it.
Pete Alonso going to be a Met next year then? If you're saving owners' monies, you know, Pete Alonso going to be there?
Yeah, check me out. I said it worked out for Mets fans because he didn't have the regular season numbers that he wanted to have, used to have, whatever. So how many people are running to get him? Up, here comes the postseason. He shows you what he can be in the postseason. So there might be some people coming to get him and bid for him, but he wants to be a Met. He's always been a Met. And you have the owner with the deepest pocket that can match anybody. And now, after what Pete did, I don't think they let him walk out of the door. He's a Met. These guys love him. He's been there through all these different changes and regimes and all this stuff. Like, I think they can afford him, and I think the price goes down a little bit than what it was. And I think Pete just ends up, taking that deal and being better for it in the regular season. Once he gets paid, I think he's going to relax and not press as much. And it works out for Mets fans. You might get a 45 home run season out of Pete Alonso next year after he gets paid and taken care of.
Yeah, I agree.
If they want to stay in contention, like you say, they better sign Pete. And I've stood on that. If they want to continue to go on that trajectory that you're talking about, I know Frankie's awesome, but Pete is a big part of that. Listen, forget the regular season, what he did this year. It's tough to replace that type of production at first base. Kratz in the line.
Right.
His value's highest with the Mets. The one thing, and then we'll let Keith jump. We'll keep it going. But there is a contingent that thinks that Mark Vientos is not a long-term third baseman. And if that's the case, he's young. He's got 40 homer potential. Where is he playing? Right? He had his breakout party here in the playoffs. Where is he playing? If let's say, there's enough smart people in the front office for the Mets that are like, I don't think that he's going to be an average or above average third baseman defensively. And David Stearns loves him some defense more than most GMs. No, Kratz? I mean, the Brewers have been big on that, right? Like,
DH him.
Yeah, DH him, but that's tough. You got
everybody can't DH.
Picking that up, yeah.
If you want to open up the books for Juan Soto, that's great. If you want to open up the books for Juan Soto, let Pete walk, move Vientos over to first, and then they've got options, right? Like Keith said, they're gonna have to go get Burns or give him an offer. Who's in Atlanta? Max Fried. You're gonna have to go. So that's why I say they need to sign Pete, but the way they treated Pete, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they undervalued Pete until now. Like Keith said, I think they've undervalued Pete's production until now.
Okay. All right. We'll see. Well, Keith, this was awesome, man. Great to have you on. All right. You're worth more than Pete. Appreciate you, dude. It was awesome having you.
Yo, you guys are the best podcast in the game. Straight up, I've been saying that before. I love that you guys got Cam on here and Kratzy too. The Yankee energy, and you already know what it is, man. We're Jersey boys. So
yes.
Hey,
let's go Yanks. We're series
we
bound.
See this guy or what?
Oh yeah, nasty Nestor. I got to text Nestor. I just put up the picture of me and Nestor at the All-Star game in LA a couple years ago. Weapon. We got another weapon back.
That's right. Nestor's probably coming back. Keith, thank you. You're the man. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Hey, if you're in the New York area and you're riding along in the car, especially late night, Keith runs it. And it's a tough job too. He'll ride solo for hours. He's great. So make sure you listen to him on WFAN. Also give him a follow at Keith_McPherson. So let's spend another couple minutes on the Mets here quick. Cam, first on the game, and then we can go on the team. Did you feel like there was anything that could have been done in the game and in the series for the Mets to be able to take down the Dodgers? I mean, it would have been nice if Sean Manaea, had his ace stuff, but he said after that last start that after 80 pitches, he was running out of steam and he was losing glove side fastball command. That continued and basically was the case from the jump where you're like, all right, this guy's making his 36th start and they've relied on him basically to be their ace. And he just did not have it. The problem that I had was, man, they were lining up Phil Maton all series. And I'm like, I don't like that as the bridge. Like they went to Edwin early, which I thought was awesome. But I'm like, the game was Maton. It's 4-1. It becomes 6-1. And I mean, it's very difficult to come back from a 5-run deficit when you're going against one of, if not the best offensive team in the league. So I'm like, if you're going to go all out balls to the wall like that, I'm like, you might as well just use all the high leverage guys, see if you can come back and then worry about it. Maybe Luis Severino ends up pitching in the 8th and 9th. So that was my one gripe. The other gripe was I have the receipts. I was texting with my friend group. Jesse Winker never should have sat a series. He was so damn locked in. He's been locked in the entire month. He was been a better asset than JD Martinez. If you're looking at the ABs, I don't care what the projections say. So Winker there. Just like Kratz, I wanted Iglesias starting every game. I know McNeil did okay yesterday, but those are my little gripes if we're going to pick and choose and play armchair quarterback. But I was saying it while it was happening.
I agree. We went through it as far as David Fry not playing in every single game. I was ticked off about that. When analytics starts to get in the way a little bit, there's no way your all-star, the dude who's literally got you to that point, is sitting, not getting at bats. So for me, I couldn't agree more as far as the pitching goes. I would have gave them a different look. I thought they saw Maton way too much. And then for me, the guy that helped get you there, that helped spark that whole run, how's Jose Iglesias not in that position? And he was one of the best hitters in baseball, runners in scoring position. So I get it. I know they paid Jeff McNeil, but this wasn't the time for me to be trying to insert Jeff McNeil in the lineup. If it would have been me, he would have been a pinch hit at bat, maybe against a righty. But I would have gave Jose Iglesias those at bats. One thing that drives me crazy is you don't get to the big leagues as a right-handed hitter. And Miggy used to say, if you can't hit righties, right? You have to be able to hit righties. You have to be able to hit guys on the same side. And for me, Jose Iglesias is at quality at bat. He's going to grind at bats out. And he's going to take the single, right? He's going to keep the line moving. He knows who he is as a player. And I think they really missed his energy offensively. And then defensively, he the kind of guy who makes a play, creates a spark. He does so much. So those are my gripes. And I agree with you on the pitching, man.
Cool. Yeah, I'm with you,
man. I was kind of ticked
off
to not see Jose in the lineup. I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I love Minnie. Minnie did a great job, but you take out the guys who help get you there. And I don't like it.
Yeah, they couldn't get the job done often with runners in scoring position, which was a thing for them. But also the Dodgers are just really good. And even if they did all those things, they probably still would have lost the series. But I think it would have given them a better shot. And you never know. So, all right, let's bring in our next guest, ESPN's Tim Kirkjian, joining us right now as we preview the series. And we do some looking back here on a big Monday, as we know what the World Series looks like. But we have a few days to kind of let it all kind of sink in. Tim, great to have you on. Do you like this? So I know that this was the first year that Major League Baseball said, hey, if we have only a 5-game series on both sides, we will start this World Series on a Tuesday. We ended up having that one extra game that gets us to Friday. I like it as a media member because we get to really talk it up like it's the Super Bowl for the next few days.
I would rather start as quickly as possible because we lose momentum when we don't play a game from Sunday until Friday. That's what I would do. However, I'm not a player. I don't have to fly across the country and get ready for a game in one day. And the extra rest does allow both teams to get their pitching set. It allows their players to get rested, which I think is critical. I just hate to lose the momentum that we're not going to have a game on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday leading up to the World Series. However, this World Series is going to be so good, so special. Maybe we do need 4 days to give it its proper due.
Hey, Tim, it's your guy, Cam Maybin, my friend. I want to ask you as we talk about the Dodgers bullpen. You know, one thing I was really impressed with the guys that they ran out of the bullpen: Phillips, Kopech, Hudson, Trinan. I know they've been banged up, but I feel like when you look at the stuff that they have in the bullpen compared to the Yankees stuff in the bullpen, but the Yankees, I feel like, have the edge as far as the starting rotation goes. How do you see this playing up, and do you see an edge from either pitching staff? Because the Dodgers have, I think, the guys with the more nastier stuff when you look at it. What do you see there?
I do. That nasty stuff in that Dodger bullpen cannot be underestimated. Trying that ball diving, and Phillips' slider is ridiculously good. They have really good stuff out of that bullpen. But I will tell you, fellas, I just finished doing the Yankees against the Royals and the Yankees against the Guardians, and their bullpen is pretty darn good also. It carried that team until Judge and everybody else really started to hit. Luke Weaver, fellas, you know this. When he's right, he's not good. He's great. He was tremendous. That changeup and 96 miles an hour has changed the way that people look at him. I mean, Lane Thomas told me he faced Luke Weaver when Weaver was in Cincinnati, and then he saw him again in this series, and he went, "Who is that guy? He doesn't look anything. He doesn't throw anything like the guy that I saw before." Plus, Clay Holmes, who did give up a big hit the other day, had gone 14 innings without allowing a run in his postseason career. Jake Cousins was really good the other night. I like that Yankee bullpen, and Erik, you need to explain this to me, please. Tommy Kahnle threw 48 consecutive changeups, and he got away with it. I know it's a great changeup. I know he's got 95 in his back pocket. I know he has different arm action. But you, the catcher, explain to me how a guy can throw 48 straight changeups and be as good as he was.
Well, now all the buttons, we don't give this anymore. So Austin Wells, he was just like, he just kept touching every button just change up. He's like, oh, okay, change up. They just completely got rid of all the other buttons. And it just, as a catcher, when a guy's on a run like that, you're thinking the whole time, you're like, no chance. No chance I'm going to call this again. You're like, oop, change up. And then at one point, you're like, I'm going to go change up again. But the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to screw it up. Because you call a fastball and he gets whacked, you're the one that screwed it up. Because I know Austin Wells is in there and he's getting chatter in his ear from Matt Blake going, this pitch is a 90% pitch. And Austin Wells is like, screw it, I'm going 100%.
Right. It's so funny. Brad Ausmus, the bench coach for the Yankees, former catcher, of course, he looked at me the other day and he said, I told Tommy that he's tipping his pitches because every time he gets on the rubber, I know he's going to throw a changeup. That's how, but he gets people out with it. It is just fascinating to see how this works. I told Tommy I've never seen anybody do that. And he goes, well, neither have I. That's how odd this is. But as long as it works. He told me he shook off the catcher twice during those 48, looking to throw a slider or something. And he shook him off and said, no, I'm throwing another changeup.
Yeah, so Austin was accused of screwing it up then. He tried to screw it up by calling a fastball. The pitch is nasty. It really is. It's a unique pitch from an analytical standpoint, all that stuff. What does this series mean for baseball? Two of the most popular teams, East Coast, West Coast, everybody killer. Like there's so many boxes. Thank you, Cam, for understanding that line that I just used. But
I got you.
What does this mean for baseball?
This means this is huge for baseball. There's no way around this. This is the greatest October rivalry that baseball has ever seen. This is the 41st time the Yankees have gone to the World Series. This is the 22nd time the Dodgers have gone, their second all time, to the Yankees. This is the 12th time they'll be playing. That is a major league record. And we started this in 1941, Dodgers-Yankees in the World Series, and we finished in 1981. So it has been a really long time. We've got two 50 home run hitters, one on each team in the World Series for the first time. We have 5 former MVPs playing in this World Series, and basically all 5 are essentially in the prime of their career. We have the most remarkable player we've ever seen in Shohei Ohtani, who's going to win the MVP unanimously this year. We've got Aaron Judge, who's like no other player who's ever played the game. No one this big has ever been this good, really not even close. So we got the 2 biggest stars in the game. I think we have the 3 best hitters in the game with Soto, Judge, and Ohtani. I'm not sure how this series can miss. Dodgers, Yankees, it's as good as it can possibly get.
Well, Tim, you lead me into this next question perfectly with that. You talk about how star-studded this game is. Not just the stars, the supporting cast. These guys are great players. When you look at these 2 lineups, you look at the Yankees, they pretty much ran out the same lineup every game this postseason, barring moving a couple guys around. You know, the Dodgers, they're going to mix and match like they do. Which lineup do you see having the advantage when going into this series with all the talent out there?
Well, I think the Dodgers are slightly better. They just finished an NLCS where they scored 46 runs in 6 games. That's the most runs ever scored in an LCS. That's how good the Dodgers were. Now, Freddie Freeman, of course, has to be 100%, which he's not, for the Dodgers to have a better lineup than that of the Yankees. But this is the beauty, fellas, is that the Dodger lineup is so loaded with all those guys, and Tommy Edman got 11 hits and drove in 11 runs in the LCS. I mean, that's unbelievable. This is why baseball is the greatest game in the world. That's like Steve Kerr outscoring Pippen and Jordan on the Bulls in the championship series. Steve Kerr was great, but it can't happen. Your best players always carry the load in basketball, but in baseball, Tommy Edman, who's a really good player, don't get me wrong, 11 hits and 11 RBIs. So I love the Dodger lineup. The Dodger lineup has hit its way through any sort of pitching issues the Dodgers have. But I'm telling you, fellas, I just saw the Yankees play 9 games in a row. And Juan Soto's the best hitter in baseball. Judge is really starting to swing it. And Giancarlo Stanton is one of the great postseason players ever. There is no way around this now. He's got 16 home runs in his postseason career. Only Babe Ruth has a higher home run per at-bat ratio in the history of the game. And he hit some balls in those series that I just went, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. But I can because of how strong he is.
Okay, so you hit on exactly what I was going to ask. Is there anybody... Have you ever seen anybody, or in the history of baseball, anybody like G? But I'll more twist it this way. Has there ever been anybody that's like kind of, not even sure if he's going to play in the regular season because of injuries and stuff, and then in the postseason just become this legendary status?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I asked Aaron Boone this. I said, you need to explain to me how Giancarlo Stanton can be a pretty average hitter, a pretty easy out on a Tuesday night in June. And then October comes and he becomes Babe Ruth all of a sudden. And Booney just looked at me and he said, look, he loves the lights and he loves the noise. And that's the only way to explain how dominant he's been. But fellas, this is how good the Yankee lineup is. The home run that Judge hit off Emmanuel Clase. You guys know the pitch I'm talking about. He hits a laser shot, a 4-iron over the right center field fence. After the game, Stephen Vogt told me, Judge is the only player in baseball that can hit that pitch out for a home run. So I relay this to Aaron Boone, and he goes, well, there's someone else who could do that. That's the guy hitting after Judge, who is Stanton. And then Booney pauses and he goes, and the guy hitting before Judge could do that in Soto. So there are three guys in their lineup that are just so devastatingly good right now that if they swing it this way in the World Series, the Dodgers obviously will have their hands full.
All right, so much recency bias, but I have to get your instant reaction. Is Giancarlo Stanton a Hall of Famer?
Well, with the postseason record, I think he's going to have to get to 500 home runs to make the Hall of Fame. I haven't even done this research. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer right now. Career batting average, not what a career batting average should be for a Hall of Famer. And strikeout rate, he's got 34 strikeout games in his career, 30. But he's certainly making a case for him. And when you add in, my guess is he will be a Hall of Famer when he retires. But at the moment, I don't think you can go there.
Okay. And he's at 429. So you figure he's got at least a few seasons left, even if they're injury marred. I mean, he's likely to get to 500.
Right? He'll get to 500. Yeah. I'm sure of that because he's still unbelievably strong.
Yeah, he is. All right, so I got one more that I want to throw in there that we have not brought up for the first hour and a half of our show on the Yankees. Gleyber Torres and the job that he's done in the leadoff spot has made him, I think, the fourth name that you have to include with this group right now. It's Soto, Judge, Stanton, and I'm like, Gleyber has been so consistent this postseason. So the question for you is, what are we seeing differently from him? And how much money is he making himself? You always see that one player who bursts out in October. We've known about him for a while, but this is huge for, I think, the next team he lands with if it's not the Yankees.
Right. He's already made a ton of extra money in free agency with what he's done so far. Fellas, there were points of this season where we thought this is a two-man team. This is Judge and Soto. Well, now it's a three-man team when you add Stanton in there and others, but it's definitely 1 through 4 now with Gleyber Torres. He has been a really good offensive player for the last 2.5 months since they inserted him back in the leadoff spot. Remember, he was the leadoff guy to start the season. But when he hit the slump, Booney took him out of the leadoff spot, then put him back in there. And the only guy who has had a higher on-base percentage out of the leadoff spot since Gleyber was reinstalled there is Shohei Ohtani. That's how good he's been, and he got some huge hits against Royals and some even bigger hits against the Guardians. I think he got 8 hits in the first inning of the playoff game so far, and that's an awful lot.
Yeah, he is making himself some good money. All right, I got one follow-up for you on the bullpen conversation that you were going over earlier with the Dodgers and the Yankees. I mean, you get talk from the non-Dodger Yankee fans and just, fans that are so passionate about their clubs that they're a little pissed off to see a matchup like this, even though I mentioned at the top of the show, it's not like we get this every year, right? This isn't the NBA where you get a super team. They keep going back to the finals over and over again. So we get a lot of variety. I don't know why someone would complain. It's not like we get Yankees Dodgers all the time. But what is your answer to fans who say, the way that the game is constructed right now is unfair, where these teams can get all of these big players and now they both land in the World Series? One of the counters I think that should be made is how they put their bullpens together. Mark Leiter Jr., Jake Cousins, Tim Hill. Actually, 2 of the 3 names I just mentioned came from the White Sox, Tim. So I don't know what your answer is if anyone mentions that, and also just how you think they've been able to construct these bullpens, because these aren't many of these guys are not big money pitchers.
Right. Look, you can't argue with the average fan or any fan who says this isn't right, that the Guardians, payroll is X and the Yankees is 5 times that, or whatever it is. There's no way to argue that. The fans are right about that. But Scott, you're right also. Building a bullpen is absolutely critical, and you don't have to go get, a $25 million a year closer. mixing and matching with Cousins and Hill and Ian Hamilton, and the way they put that together, it has really, really worked out. And I am convinced, Davey Johnson convinced me of this years ago. You win in October with a deep, versatile bullpen now more than ever. And that's what the Yankees have, because I watched it work. And if you don't overwork them, that's a pretty darn good system. And look, some of these small market teams have won lately. So it's not that the big market teams win every year. If you're a small market team and you build your team properly, you can win.
How we always evaluate players, play during this time of year. How would you evaluate Stephen Vogt, the rookie manager, his managing during this postseason?
Well, I think he's done a great job. I talked to the Guardians guys, and granted, they're biased. He's their guy. But he went toe-to-toe, they told me, with A.J. Hinch. And Joey Cora of the Tigers told me in that series that A.J. Hinch is the best strategist, the best game manager in baseball today. And he's not just the best today. Joey told me he's the best I've ever seen. And it's hard to disagree that he's the best game strategist today. And I'm told by the Guardians guys that Stephen Vogt was with him every step of the way. Now, did he do a perfect job against the Yankees? No, but it's hard to do that in the postseason. I think Aaron Boone made all of the right moves, virtually all of the right moves. But there's no way around this. Stephen Vogt is going to be the manager of the year in the American League. He's going to deserve it for the way he kept that team together. Fellas, they had a 50-57 record out of their starting rotation with a 4.40 ERA, and they won 92 games. That's really hard to do. And let's be honest here. They had three really good offensive players, Stephen Kwan, Jose Ramirez, and Josh Naylor. They had to mix and match after that. I think Stephen Vogt did a tremendous job in every way for the Guardians this year.
Yeah, what a successful year for them. And they've got a lot coming actually in the pipeline. They're one of the better teams farm system wise, and according to Baseball America. Tim, this was awesome as always. Thank you for joining us, and want to plug the podcast on the way out. Of course, check out Tim on ESPN's coverage, but also check out Is This a Great Game or What? We talked about it last time, but just want to give it another little plug here. Tim and his son, Jeff, talking ball, talking about everything, obviously, guests all over the map. So, Tim, thank you so much. Appreciate it again. Everyone obviously can find this wherever they get their pods.
All right, fellas, thanks a lot. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too. Enjoy the series. Tim Kirkjian with us on FT. It's going to be awesome, like Tim mentioned. Really good stuff there. All right, let's take a quick sec to give love to another sponsor for the show here. And then I want to bring up a point I heard from someone about bullpen usage and how it could affect players here long-term from our two players. But first, a little flash to Manscaped. Because this episode is brought to you by Manscaped. And if we're going upper body this time, Cam, we've moved to upper body because we're promoting the Chairman Pro electric foil shaver right now. So obviously Manscaped can get you covered in a variety of ways, but upper body, everyone's been through it, right? Especially when you first are going through your shaving experience. Maybe, when you were a kid and you get some crappy razor and it's cutting you up, and then you learn that quality matters and all of that. But then even as you move further along, maybe you make a little more money, you can get a little fancier with it. What I still would come across often, like it's too dull. You'd use a shaver. It's dull. You kind of feel like, oh, well, the blade wore out. And then you just find out it's not that. It's just that the company you were using wasn't good. So anyway, that leads me to the Chairman Pro here. So if you want to get yourself a little action, go for it. 20% off, free shipping with code FOUL20. Either of you know what I'm talking about? You ever done where you get an electric and it just doesn't have the power that you need?
Yes.
It rips the hair out.
I bought one the other day. I was in emergency, and I was going, God, I needed that Manscaped Chairman Pro right now.
Thank you. Exactly.
Trash.
So it's the luxury of a professional shave right into your home. Yeah. Don't go for the trash outside. All you have to do is go to the website, right? And then they'll hook you up real quick. So it's manscaped.com. And you can make sure you get yourself hooked up with the code FOUL20 for 20% off. Experience a shave as smooth as you deserve. 20% off plus free shipping with the code FOUL20 at manscaped.com. Yes, free shipping and 20% off. And for you to know, the Chairman Pro has the Flex Adjust technology. There's multiple settings if you're going for that real clean cut look, or you want a little, a little bit to it still, a little bit of that shadow. So go check it out. All right, let's hit Hot Corner. All right, first, I just want to bring this up on the bullpen side of things. So we were just talking to Tim Kirkjian about Cleveland's bullpen and what they were able to put together in this postseason, right? Without really much of a starting staff to brag about. Do we have a problem player performance-wise and player safety-wise when you're just going into the tank and using the same guys over and over again? And I don't even just mean that for the postseason. Look at the usage for some of these very young relievers during the regular season for Cleveland. I mean, they were eating up a ton of innings. Just like I talked about with the Dodgers, but even more so, it's a depleted starting staff. They came in there with not even close to what you would love to see from a starting rotation. And then they lost guys, including, of course, Shane Bieber. So, yeah, I mean, Kratz, I'll start with you because you got to thread the needle, right? Vote's a new manager. He has bosses too. He doesn't have the roster that is put together like some of these other teams, especially the postseason ones that he was going up against. Yet he was given some of the better arms in baseball. So how do you manage all of that? But also, are you concerned that 3 years from now, we don't even know who some of these guys are because they were used so heavily and their arms fell off?
I would fight against that and say Voter helped some of these guys become some of the better arms in baseball. They didn't bring this bullpen together and wow, they just gave him all the best relievers. He put them in situations. He communicated with them throughout the season. Hey, I'm going to need to use you here. I'm going to need to really, I'm going to need to ride that arm for 3 out of the next 4 days. That's just what it looks like. Know that you're ready, but know that you got to talk to me. So to me, yes, these guys came up from the minor leagues, but to me, Voter helped make them what they are. Their stuff is unbelievable. But if you put your players and your pitchers in a good situation, they have success. What does that mean for later in their career? Even 2-3 years from now? We don't know. Maybe they all go on the Brian Shaw trajectory. 70 plus appearances, 80. I think Brian Shaw had 78 appearances one regular season, without the postseason. That's the trajectory these guys are on. They know what it's going to be like. They don't have to come in the next year and be oh, I don't know if we get 70 out of him. He's never done it. They're putting up 70 to 75 appearances, and they're all in the same boat. So am I worried about that? 100%, because we have so many injuries. Am I worried that those guys shouldn't have been used that way? Absolutely not. You're in the big leagues. It's time to go.
Okay. Well, Cam, I'll back some numbers into it as well. And of course, the Tigers have a similar storyline going here with the way that they were able to navigate the postseason. But I'll pull up some numbers for us real quick. First off, with postseason appearances, Tim Herrin and Cade Smith led the way so far with 9, right? Hunter Gaddis, 8, Emmanuel Clase, 7. So those guys are all in the top 6. Regular season, in the top 10, there are 4 Cleveland Guardians. Gaddis, Herrin, Clase, who's pitched, enough in the bigs at this point. I give him a little bit of a kind of different look here, and Cade Smith's on this list as well. Does that what do you got, Kratz? You want to stop me here?
But why is Clase's been in the big leagues, so his arm is built up from season to season. He's got more mileage. These dudes ain't got no miles. They're driving them like a rental car.
Well, I think it adds to your point, Kratzy, and I think it's a little bit deeper than just the generic conversation is this bad for guys? Because covering the Tigers a year ago, doing pre and post and doing some in-booth stuff for them, one thing I learned early in spring training is that A.J. Hinch was actually looking for guys that could give him 2 or 3 innings. They were looking for guys that were ex-starters that were kind of built up, or they were looking to build up for 2 to 3 to 4 innings during the season for these moments. So I think what's happening is, these analytic departments, these organizations are doing a little bit better due diligence of finding out who those guys are that can withstand that type of workload, right? So I don't think they're just going out and they're just throwing guys in the fire going, hey, you're going to give us everything you have. When you talk about Stephen Vogt, when you talk about AJ Hinch, just like Kratz said, one thing they're really good, like Tim Kurkjian just mentioned, they're really good at communicating. And sometimes communicating is just as important as running guys out there. If guys know their role and know what you expect of them, and you communicate that with them, it's a little bit easier for them to get through all of those innings. So I think the Guardians have done a really good job of player development, knowing that, hey, when we're building guys up in the bullpen, in the minor leagues, we're building them to be able to throw 2 or 3 or 4 innings if they need to. So I think these guys are more prepared and more ready than they have been in the past, instead of just loading these guys up like we saw the Yankees of the past, the Rays of the past, due to their bullpens and guys get worn out. I think guys are more prepared to come into these situations now. And injuries are part of the game, but I agree with Kratz. I think these young guys, they're ready. They know what they're to expect of themselves. And I think I think this is a good opportunity for them to put their name out there, and it's going to get them closer to getting to what they want to do. And that's a long-term deal, possibly.
Okay. What a damn run for Cleveland, just to spend a few minutes on them and put their season in the books. Okay. Vogt was incredible. They had a few guys that really stood out. Stephen Kwan is so fun to watch, and he's built for the postseason. Just like using, who mentioned this the other day, how Arise uses the field in a different way from everyone else. Kwan is pretty close there too, where he's like, all right.
It's like Wade Boggs and Tony Gwynn. It's like watching the two dudes all over again. That's what they like. Stephen Kwan gives me that Wade Boggs, and Arise is like Tony Gwynn. It's crazy.
It is crazy. So before we give him love, what happened to Emmanuel Clase, Kratz? Because Cam and I were on during that game, and then obviously, so we got to kind of weigh in already. So did Mason Miller. Again, if you're just joining us, we had a watch party on Friday with Brent Rooker, Vinny Pasquantino, Bobby Witt Jr., Tarek Skubal, Mason Miller, more joining us. So Kratz, what did you see from Clase after the Instagram story about all the accolades he had? Mason Miller was like, I don't know, man, that's a little weird. I feel a little concerned about him mentally. And then boom, he gives it up again quick on, obviously not Pop. It was Rizzo, and then who followed real quick with the knock? Volpe, right? On Friday night. And they ended up getting 2 runs off Clase.
It might have been Volpe or Glaber. Somebody a little shot.
Not Glaber, because he was leading off. I think it was
Volpe. Yeah, somebody shot it to right.
Up the middle. Yeah. So anyway, what did you see there? Then then you get to a point where you're like, all right, now they're even knocking his cutter into the outfield to put together hits. You're just not seeing the same kind of Class A dominance that you saw in the regular season, and inconsistent velo. I didn't watch every outing, obviously, of Class A all year, but you'd see the cutter pumping in 101. But then when he started, I think the first 2 ABs against Rizzo and I think it was Volpe, I think he was more like 98 with the cutter. So I didn't know if that's a thing, because then maybe it cuts a little bit less, but I'll leave that up to you, Kratz.
All right. I'm going to go 100%. I'm going to go 90% with what Mason Miller said. He looks shook, and he's telling you what it feels like to be a closer in the big leagues with elite stuff, and seeing the results and seeing how his mannerisms are. But we also have to understand with Emmanuel Clase, everybody thinks this guy, he gave up, I want to get it right, 5 runs on the season, 5 earned runs,
yep.
10 runs total, 5 earned runs, okay? He had 74 innings. If I were to set the over-under of how many strikeouts he had at 67.5, I think 99% of the world would take the over. He had 66 strikeouts in 74 1/3 innings in the regular season. He is not a big-time strikeout guy, and I feel like the game was being called for him to just punch everybody's tickets. If you watch every one of those at-bats, not one dude was trying to pull him. They were all trying to go to right center. And without throwing the ball in enough, I know his ball's cutting, so it's like, oh, well, we can't throw the ball in because if we throw the ball in and it's going to leak over the plate, we want to stay away and make it leak off the plate. That's a passive way to call games. When the other team is taking the ball to the opposite field, Judge takes a painted cutter down and away, just rocket, just a missile to the seats. Hanging slider to Kerry Carpenter, hanging slider to Giancarlo Stanton. all pitches that he's gotten away with during the season. But to me, he never established in to straighten the hitters up to then make that pitch. His cutter and his slider that maybe weren't the best have weaker contact, because he's not just the penultimate Cade Smith who had like 100 and some strikeouts in 70 innings. Like it felt like they started pitching Emmanuel Clase in the playoffs like he was a huge big-time punch-out guy, which he is not, and that's what I saw.
Beautiful. Beautiful. You couldn't explain it better. You're absolutely right. One thing I've said, did you ever get a chance to face him, Kratzy?
No, he was in the minor leagues. I just missed him.
Even if you don't, Kratzy just said it so beautifully. As a right-handed hitter especially, you can look out over. Like, you can eliminate middle end. And what happens in the playoffs, and I continue to say it, you're seeing team at-bats, right? During the season, yeah, you want to win, but guys are still trying to get theirs. Right now, you're seeing team at-bats where guys are going, hey, one-on-one, cut her out over. Hey, pass the baton. Let's get the pitch count out. Let's get hits. Let's get as many knocks as possible. And that's where I think when you don't have this type of strikeout stuff, like Kratzy just said, I think they got carried away with the stuff of Emmanuel Clase, but forgetting who he actually was. And I think you just explained it beautifully. You couldn't say it any better. Absolutely.
Okay, I love that. All right, now let's talk nice about Cleveland and what they were able to put together. If you look at that roster entering the season, how many people had them making an ALCS?
Well, if you talk about, I still stand on it. The Central is still one of the weaker divisions, in my opinion. I know a lot of people probably picked the Twins, but I think when you just look at it, for me, I picked the Tigers at the beginning of the year. That didn't happen, but they turned it on late. I just think the division is up in the air, so it doesn't surprise me. I think Stephen Vogt did a great job when you talk about managing what he had. But one thing I can say, I think Terry Francona left it this way as far as culture, is understanding who your guys are and getting them to star in their roles. And one thing that Cleveland does every single year, they get guys who understand what they do extremely well. They stick to it, and it creates a great team atmosphere. And that's how they win those one-run ball games, those close ball games, along with preparing guys, like Kratzy said, to be ready when they come up to pitch at the back end of the bullpen, at the big league level. So I give Stephen Vogt a lot of credit, but I think it's a culture that was already established when he got there. He did a great job of continuing to carry that on, if you ask me.
And I had the Tigers winning the division also. So me and Cam, we think alike in that realm, but we don't think alike in the fact that I think the AL Central was not as weak as people put it out there. Or I should say it was not as weak as the Twins thought the AL Central was. And that's why they didn't make any added adjustments, because they figured they were going to walk away with this division again. I think the American League West is the weakest division, but that's for another story. That's for another argument. But I think this division is now all of a sudden, while you might say it's weak, minus the White Sox, this is a tremendously competitive division. I know the Twins aren't going to do much. The Tigers are going to they're going to run back what they have, plus they're going to add. And I think the Royals have shown that this team that they built wasn't just a bunch of one-year deals. They want to win for the next 3 years and hopefully for the next 10 when Bobby Witt's still in his prime. So the Guardians are going to have to run it back, and they're going to have to get starting pitching. I know Bieber needed to be healthy. McKenzie needed to be healthy. Everybody has injuries. They needed to get those injury depth pieces. And they didn't have it, so that's what they need to do from here on out.
You know what I'm also learning? The White Sox are screwed for a while, because the Tigers, I think, are going to spend a little this offseason. And make sure you check out Tiger Territory. They're already talking about that, one of our shows in the FT fam. The Cleveland Guardians just made it to the ALCS, and you'll listen to Hot Sheet later if you're interested, the Baseball America show that actually has just moved now to 3:30 p.m. Eastern time live on Mondays. So after our show ends in like 10 minutes, Dodgers Territory is on, and then Baseball America Hot Sheet, if you want to go check that out. It's going to be a good one today. We're going to talk about, Final Four teams and what their farm systems look like. And I was on the meeting this morning for the show, and they're like, Cleveland's good. And I'm like, what stands out? And they're like, position players. And I'm like, perfect. Some bats for Cleveland. That's what they need, right? Some more Big Christmas, John Kenzie Noels maybe in the system for Cleveland. Some more athletes too to fill some of the infield spots. So anyway, we'll talk more about where they're at. The Minnesota Twins, I mean, definitely had a terrible collapse, but they're not a bad team, and they're going to have a new ownership group that's going to come in and not be cheap as hell. I mean, it's a lock that MLB's trying to let in better people nowadays when they're able to make choices. So that helps. And the Royals, like you said, Kratz, are in pretty good shape. So I'm like, damn, White Sox are going to have work to do.
This I just thought of it because you were just talking about the Twins, the Guardians, the Tigers. Maybe we should give more love to Bobby Witt Jr. He had to face all of those bullpens way more than anybody else. Those bullpens absolutely come after you. And I know the Twins, Yohan Durand wasn't quite what he was the year before. They're bringing some dudes out of that pen. And Bobby Witt still had success in that division.
You're right. So anyway, great season for Cleveland to wrap things up. I mean, Jose Ramirez is still a stud. Naylor obviously didn't have the dream postseason, came on a little bit more late, but you wanted more power out of him after a really, really strong year with the bat. What did he end up with? 35-ish homers in that range?
I think it was under 35, but he definitely got over 30.
Yeah.
He had over 100 stakes. He definitely, great. Until the last game there, he was kind of non-existent.
He should get better.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying he's been pretty good. You think he trends up, and I think they possibly might have the catcher of the future because Bo Naylor had some big playoff postseason at bats, and I know he struggled during the regular season, but he showed that he possibly could be a piece when you talk about manning that rotation. So you got some nice pieces. I like Manzardo. I like what they've done. I really do.
Yeah,
Rocchio had a great showing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
dude, Rocchio had like a little mini Quan to him with the way that he was at times showing off the contact and work in the field. I know he had a couple mistakes, but overall, he's a pretty elite defender if you watch him all year.
I need to see Bo Naylor take the next step. I think he has.
Where is that?
I really think it's how he controls the speed of the game. He's fortunate. He has Stephen Vogt, who caught for a long time in the big leagues. Craig Albernaz is I think he's the bench coach for Voter. Craig he does, and Sandy's there, but Sandy's always there. Like Sandy's been with him for a minute now. So Sandy's awesome in that stuff. He has guys around him that he needs to take that next step. He needs to take the Gabriel Moreno next step that Gabby took when they went to the playoffs, because your team will only go as far as your game calling and your pace of game behind the dish. And people will say, they got pitch clock, whatever, there's no pace of game. There's 100% pace of game. It's how you're making those calls. It's how you get new guys into the game, and this is the guy that has to be out there. So to me, he needs to take the next step so that they're not needing to put Austin Hedges into the game.
Yes.
Nothing against Austin Hedges, but you can't have him taking at bats in the ninth inning for a World Series team. So Bo Naylor needs to really delve into that and understand what that is for him and what that means of how to really control that game.
And last thing here, because we had the Class A Mariano talk from a few weeks back. Let's just show Mariano's contributions in the postseason. I get it, both with the cutters, that's the premier pitch. Class A had the ridiculous season. But this is actually one of those cases where we can just say, what does this player look like in the playoffs? What does this player look like in the playoffs? Obviously, Mo's had way, 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 way more time in the postseason. But also, I mean, the damage given up by Class A just in this postseason alone is basically the damage that Mo gave up in his career in 20 plus times the appearances, maybe more. So MLB's top 10 career saves leaders is from Foolish Baseball, sorted by career playoff win probability added percentage, right? How much of a factor are you in that particular game to help your team win? Mariano Rivera is plus 183%. Next highest in the top 10 is Julio Franco. You don't know what it means?
I mean, we're talking about little c WPA percentage. Like, that number, you could have made that number 1,000%. And I would have been like, yep, spot on, Mariano Rivera. best ever. Like we talked about the other day, and I told the guys, I forget who all was on. It was me and you, Scotty, and who else?
Trevor?
Talking about Hedges. Was it Fraser?
Oh, maybe Fraser. Why? What'd you say? Just remind everyone.
I said, why are we even talking about that? We are giving too much credit. We are losing. I could see our followers just going down. They were just unfollowing us by talking about what Austin Hedges said. Look, Austin Hedges is supposed to say that about his guy. It's not even close. Hedgie never faced, Hedgie never faced Mariano Rivera. So I'm glad that Hedgie said that about his guy, but look, we won't ever see. In our lifetime, we will never see Mariano Rivera again. That is why he was a unanimous Hall of Fame vote first time in. I think the only one, right?
I don't know. I don't know if one other person did. I don't honestly care that much about it because one person out of 1,000 can ruin it. I think there's a lot more to MVP since it's only a much smaller voting contingency. But yes, I mean, he is the dude. So that's just part of many that show he was on another planet in the postseason. All right, let's hit our locks. We're looking back. We're not picking anything, obviously, today. But Lion, hit it. We're at the finish line here. Friday's locks. I got the Yanks for a money line to take a dub. Kratz over. Dodgers 4.5 runs. I mean, book that for every game but one. I think last series they scored more than even. I think they hit that in every game. Kratz and I were texting for days. Cam, we're just like, is over Mets Dodgers just the most automatic lock ever, and just kept smashing. Yesterday, I even told one of my buddies, I was like, also hit the Dodgers team run over. So whatever. It was a good weekend. Todd Father went Yanks money line, and then Jonathan Papelbon's just going through it right now. Went with Cleveland. He's in an 0-for-7 spot.
Tough postseason for all closers. Devin Williams gave it up. Clase gave it up. Hoffman, Weaver, Papelbon, Holmes. If you're a closer, you might just need to wake me up when October ends.
Beautiful. Thanks. Thank you, Green Day. Green Day. Really nice. All right, let me give you the read. If you're first to the party here at BetMGM, up to $1,500 back in bonus bets. If you don't win your first bet, when you sign up and deposit at least $10 into your BetMGM account, place your first wager, receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if the bet loses. And if that happens, those bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. Gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's slap. All right, FT fam. First, let's get Kratz hats, and then we're going to send you to Dodgers territory.
I just want everybody to know where the Rays are going to be playing their games this coming year. Oh, Buffalo. Buffalo is going to be cold in April, but it's my call. MLB has already helped out the Blue Jays, did a little renovations there. MLB is going to be like, hey, you could use our $5 million that we put into that stadium. Go for it. And so they'll go play there until they get an umbrella that'll fit over the trop.
Freeze their asses off in April playing ball up in Buffalo. I'm telling you, it is going to be cold. The Northeast does not look the same with the way the months line up these days, okay? You'll get real nice weather still running up here in almost November, but that means that winter gets kind of pushed back. So it is
You might get some snow outs.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
You might get some snow outs in April up in Buffalo if you decide.
I've seen it. Stroman did his photo shoot the one day on May 5th. Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. He's doing his photo shoot on the mound, and we got delayed. We didn't have the game because there was snow on the field.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they should go up there for April, May. I think they're going to cause other problems, and I don't think that's the way to attract the fans. You want Buffalo in the summer, go for it. We'll see. We'll update you on that mess as it comes. Dodgers territory coming up next. That's on the Dodgers territory YouTube channel. Give them some love. Give them a little sub. Watch the show. Alana and Clint bringing it. They've been awesome on the late night post-game shows. We'll have our post-game show for World Series Game 1 on Friday. We've got this show, of course, 1 to 3 Eastern every single day, all year long. And Hot Sheet, the Baseball America show, talking prospects and other like in-depth baseball talk with JJ Cooper leading the way from Baseball America, is now every Monday, 3:30 Eastern time on the Baseball America YouTube channel. I'll be on there, so please come hang out with us. We answer questions about prospects, and we'll go over the final 4 teams. So good stuff, guys. Good chat. We'll talk soon. All right.
Yes, sir.
Cam was a prospect one time. I was.
That's right.
Boy, once you're not, you're not.
Happens quick.
Happens quick. Hey, you can be the 6th outfielder in AAA is what they told me at the end. Dang. 6?